Hello BookTube, welcome back to my 2026 library tour. Today I'm going to finish this middle bookcase of my fiction, poetry, and drama section of my library. I'm going to start with Mark Merlis and his novel An Arrow's Flight. This is a modernized retelling of the last weeks, months of the Trojan War. This novel is about the finding of Neoptolemus or Paris, the son of Achilles, who was foretold that his presence, along with an abandoned hero named Philoctet, would be vital for the downfall of Troy. They were two of the individuals in the Trojan horse, alongside Odysseus. And so this is the novel about bringing Neoptolemus Paris to the Trojan War and the end of the war. Although the conceit is that Neoptolemus Paris is a go-go boy. And I'm not entirely sure where things go from there, because even though I've had this novel kind of sort of for a long time, a different copy of An Arrow's Flight was one of the two books that I picked up from Book People, the great bookstore in Austin, Texas, the first time I went. The other one being word of mouth. However, I never got into An Arrow's Flight, and I got rid of that copy, and a few years ago I picked up this new copy. And still haven't gotten around to it yet. I really need to correct that. The next two books are by James Merrill. First up is The Changing Light at Sendover. This is his massive single poem that he worked over for many years. I read it well over 20 years ago, and I remember it fondly, but I do need to revisit it. I also have the collected poems of James Merrill. Now, much like with An Arrow's Flight and a number of other books, I had this in my collection much earlier and read it and rather liked it, but then got rid of it and have kicked myself in the keister ever since, and I picked it back up a few years ago. Next is the Go-Go Boy Sonnets, Men of the New York Club Scene by Edmund Miller. So this is a collection of sonnets dedicated to various go-go dancers in the New York gay club scene. For the dancers whose first language or where their ethnic background is from, Miller also has a translation of the poem into that language. So these are pretty interesting. It's been a while since I last read it. I've had this book for over 20 years. Allegedly, there was going to be a different edition that featured pictures of some of the young men featured as the subjects of the sonnets, but I don't think that ever panned out. Sticking with poetry, this is Sonic Peace by Kiryu Minashita, translated from the Japanese by Eric E. Hyatt and Spencer Thurlow. So this is a slim volume of poetry from a Japanese poet. This is a really interesting collection. I really enjoyed it when I read it last year. And it's from Phony Media, which is, I think, part of Deep Vellum, which is an independent publisher located in Dallas, Texas. The next batch of books are all by Yukio Mishima, which I've talked about quite a bit this year, particularly the last 4. So first up is Acts of Worship. This is a collection of short stories by Mishima. This is the first book of his I ever owned, and I've had it for well over 20 years, probably closer to 25 years. And they're translated by John Bester. The second book of Mishima's I picked up is The Temple of the Golden Pavilion, which I still need to read, and is translated from the Japanese by Evan Morris. So the next up are the 4 books in the Sea of Fertility tetralogy, Yukio Mishima's magnum opus, and the subject of a booktube reading event that took place over the course of the first 4 months of 2026, although I don't know exactly how many booktubers have been reading or have stuck with the Sea of Fertility tetralogy. I have, and I've loved it. This was an amazing reading experience. First up is Spring Snow, which is set in the mid-19-teens, the very end of the Meiji period, and the very beginning of the Taisho period. It's about a young man named Kiyowaki, who is a young aristocrat who was raised and has developed a very interesting sense of the beautiful. He has a very conflicted relationship with a young woman named Satoko, who was his foster sister. And their relationship, the vagaries of, do they love each other? Do they hate each other? Why can't they communicate properly with each other? Spells doom for Kiyowaki. All this observed by Kiyowaki's friend Honda, who is the overall main character of the Sea of Fertility tetralogy, even as various incarnations of Kiyowaki, or who Honda believes are reincarnations of Kiyowaki. And so the Sea of Fertility tetralogy goes from 1914 to 1974, or like 1913 to 1974. The second book in the series is Runaway Horses. So Spring Snow is translated by Michael Gallagher, as is Runaway Horses. So Runaway Horses takes place in the 1930s, and Honda here is a judge in his late 30s, and he meets a young man named Iseo, who is the son of Kiyowaki's old tutor. Iseo is a political radical and has set up his own student terrorist group. And they are stopped before they can act on their plans, and Honda resigns his judgeship to become a lawyer so that he can help defend or lead the defense of Iseo. Although things end up, while things go Honda's way legally, at the end, there is no saving Iseo. This is also really good. Even with all of the right-wing politics. The third book is The Temple of Dawn. This one is translated by Deli Saunders and Cecilia Sagawa Siegel. So the Temple of Dawn is set at first in the early 1940s, when Honda, still a lawyer, is working on an international business dispute between a Japanese company that's hired him and a Thai company. Honda is in Bangkok when he hears of a Thai princess who claims to be a Japanese boy. Honda comes to believe that this princess, Yin-chan, is the reincarnation of Kiyowaki and Iseo. So when she comes to Japan to study in the early 50s, Honda takes some responsibility for her. In heavy, heavy air quotes. The final book in the series is The Decay of the Angel, which is translated by Edward G. Seidensticker. This novel takes place in the 70s. The ending, of course, years after the death of Mishima himself. The novel was finished in 1970, but the final chapters have to take place in the future from Mishima's death because of how the story works out. So in The Decay of the Angel, Honda is now an elderly man. One day he meets a young man named Toru, who is an orphan. He works as a signalman for a company that contracts to sort of inform local harbors of what ships are coming in and that sort of thing. And this is at the port or harbor of Shimizu. So Honda becomes convinced that Toru is the latest incarnation of Kiyowaki and resolves to adopt the young man and teach him and try to save him from the fate that befell the other three incarnations. Although, from what I can gather, the fate of Yin-chan was more accidental than Kiyowaki or Iseo's ends were. Most decidedly not accidents. So Honda adopts Toru and begins to educate him, and whether or not this is to save Toru, unlike Honda's failures with Kiyowaki, Iseo, and Yin-chan, or to have a front row seat for the inevitable spectacular death and the devastation that follows, remains to be seen. However, Toru himself is something of a sadistic sociopath and wishes to hurt as many people as he can, including Honda. So, yeah. Okay. Moving on from Mishima, next is Into by North Morgan. This is a gay novel that came out a few years ago about a young man, he's in his late 20s or very early 30s, who has moved to Los Angeles and is getting into the Los Angeles club scene. I've had this book for years and I still need to get on with it. Next is a candidate for the Great American Novel, Beloved by Toni Morrison. This is a novel set in the 19th century about a woman who escaped from slavery, who is facing what she did to ensure her freedom and her family's freedom when she's confronted by a young woman who could be the ghost of the child that she murdered. I've tried to read this novel once and didn't succeed. and I would like to give it another go. So, hopefully this year. I have a plan. Back to poetry with Please Make Me Pretty, I Don't Want to Die by Tawanda Molalu. It's the volume of poetry from the Princeton series of contemporary poets. This came about 3 or 4 years ago. I don't particularly care for it. I've read it twice, and the collection doesn't really work for me. Next is Joy and Service en Route to Gore by Paul Muldoon. This is, I believe, Muldoon's most recent collection of poetry, and I didn't particularly get on with it. But I will probably reread it again, because sometimes it takes a reading or a rereading or two for me to like some poetry. Some I immediately gravitate to, and some it takes me a while. Next is The Moons of Jupiter by Alice Munro. This is the short story collection from 1983, which is the year of my birth. So I picked this short story collection up alongside a few other books as part of a project to read books written in the year of my birth. Unfortunately, I've never gotten on with this short story collection. Try as I might. I'm thinking I might give it another go sometime later this year. Depending if I want to participate in Shorty September. So back to poetry with Subhuman Redneck by Les Murray. So Les Murray is a great Australian poet. This is the only collection of his that I have, and it is really good. I picked it up a few years ago as part of a project to read some Australian poetry for Aussie April and National Poetry Month. So this is the third of the 3, alphabetically. I had his poetic novel Freddie Neptune, but I don't have it anymore. It's one of those that I wish I had back. So I might try to do that sometime soon. Next is a recent acquisition. Heartlamp by Banu Mushtaq, translated from the Kannada by... Come on, other stories. Can't you tell me without me having to hunt for it? Deepa Bhashti. So this won the Booker International Prize last year, and looking forward to reading it. I picked it up a few months ago. Next is Mama Day by Gloria Naylor. I first had this novel back when I was a teenager and really loved it. It's about a young woman who returns with her boyfriend to an island off the coast of Georgia, where her grandmother or great-grandmother is a very influential woman, and things happen. It's been a long time since I've read it. I haven't read it since I was a teenager. I think I've only read it once, and then got rid of it and really regretted it. So I picked this up about a year or so ago. Night Journey by Maria Negroni, translated from the Spanish by Anne Twitty. So this is a collection of poetry from an Argentine. She's an Argentine poet. It's good. I rather liked it. It's from the Library of Poetry and Translation, so you will have the Spanish original on the even numbered pages and the English translation on the odd numbered pages. Next is These Violent Delights by Micah Nemirover. This is a novel set in the 1970s, or 1980s, but inspired by the Leopold and Loeb murder from the 1920s. It's about two young men who are in college, and they begin a relationship, and one of them, or both of them, have mental issues, and they sort of give into more sociopathic tendencies, I think. I read, I think, the first few chapters, and then bailed on it. So I have some unfinished business with this book. I think this is so far the only book by Nemirover. I don't know if there's any others. This is a Vietnamese novel, Chronicles of a Village by Nguyen Thanh Hien, translated from the Vietnamese by Nguyen Nguyen Hong. This is part of the Margiela's World Republic of Letters series from Yale University Press, and it won a book award in California. So it wasn't the California Book Awards. I think it was like the Northern California Book Awards or something similar. So I'm subscribed to both the Commonwealth Club, formerly the Commonwealth Club of California, which hosts the California Book Awards, at least occasionally. I don't think they actually did the 2025 one. I never saw it, I don't think. But the San Francisco Public Library hosts the Northern California Book Awards, and this one for translated literature, which gave me the kick in the pants to pick it up. So the next two books are big short story collections. First, The Complete Stories by Flannery O'Connor, which won the National Book Award. I recently re-added this to my collection. It's been a few months. Thinking about rereading these stories sometime soon. I also have collected stories by Frank O'Connor, who's an Irish short story writer. Mayflies by Andrew O'Hagan. I recently added this to my collection, and won the Christopher Isherwood Prize from the Los Angeles Times. And finally, the last book on this shelf, and consequently the last book on this bookcase, is the collected poems of Frank O'Hara. So Frank O'Hara was a major gay poet of the mid-20th century. Much like with James Merrill, I had this collection for ages, and when I was in my early 20s, read it, loved it, got rid of it, kicked myself in the keister for it, and added it back to my collection a few years ago. So that concludes the middle bookcase of the fiction, poetry, and drama section of my library. I will be back next week for the final bookcase. I just need to figure out how I'm going to do the first 2 or 3 shelves, because I'm not entirely sure whether or not I can film standing up in front of them without holding my laptop, which might be very dangerous. So I will figure that out, and you will see the results of that. Anyway, BookTube, Look forward to it. And until then, have a great morning.